101.5 FM. Morning Magazine continues now. Lee Chippendale, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Shane.
Peter Smith.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm very well.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the real estate segment of the show today. And what are we doing today?
All right, today Peter is going to inform us on different types of unapproved structures, what you should do, the processes you should go through. Peter, explain basically what to look for, I suppose, with an unapproved structure.
Lee, Shane, previous times I've been here, I've talked about leaving yourself enough time to make informed decisions, leaving yourself enough time to search things out properly, and making sure you have a pest and building inspection, making sure if the property you're buying is within the boundaries of the old Caboolture Shire, that you have your solicitor or real estate agent put a clause on there that the vendor, the seller, is responsible for fixing up any works, any building that doesn't comply, that hasn't got a council approval. At our first meeting, I think I told you that there was a lag period of some years when the council did not do compliance inspections. And the reality is that we're still finding houses that have unapproved structures.
So, we're talking like, what do you call it, little tree houses, that sort of thing?
Well, what I want to say, yes, we are, amongst other things. You'll have to take your tree house down, Shane.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. The thing is, people may have got approval and just not got a final.
Yes, very often.
People may have got approval and not had the appropriate inspections done, also common and a little bit more problematic. But there is also the possibility that people have had a whole structure done without any approvals, any inspections. Now, the things to look for, you might ask, if we're going to put a clause on the contract that says the vendor's got to fix it up, why do I bother? Well, two reasons. Firstly, you don't want to get excited about buying a house and then discover there's something wrong. That's ammunition for the fight to start. And secondly, you might have sold your house, the kids have moved out, you've got money in the bank, you go to an auction. Now, when you buy a property at an auction, you're not going to get any of those conditions on there. You buy it as is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So the things, I jotted down some things, Shane, to look for. Pools used to be a problem, a perennial problem, but with the new legislation, that's gradually falling by the way because they have to have certificates.
Mm-hmm.
You have to notify each buyer whether there is a certificate, and you have to state whose responsibility it is. But the things to really look for houses having been built underneath.
Yeah.
Can't always tell, but if they have, it was a high-set house with a garage and a laundry underneath, and now it's a house with a couple of bedrooms, an ensuite, and that sort of thing underneath, maybe a problem.
Also, legal height comes into that even as well.
Yes, it does. And where I live in the north end of Brisbane, it's a very common problem. People build in, but they don't have the legal height underneath.
Correct.
And they never will without raising the house. Built-in carports, closed-in carports can be a major problem. Sheds over 3 to 3 metres in the yard. And what I'm going to talk about is the pergola. We call it the pergola, but P.G. Woodhouse tells us that it's correctly pronounced pergola.
I've been mispronouncing it for many, many years then.
It's the only word in the English language that rhymes with burglar.
Yes, I holiday about that.
Burglar, very good.
So if you've bought, or if
A
someone
burglar.
bought, back in the 1990s, they bought a little, what the Americans call a ranch house,
Yes.
an oblong rectangle.
Mm-hmm.
They decided to put a pergola down one side of it. Now, a pergola is posts and beams or rafters, if you like, connected to the fascia or feet of the house, and that's it. It creates an area, an outside area. People might put their bins there, their outside table, whatever. That's great. They sell the house. The next person might put a slab underneath it. Now, okay, but that's all right, I suppose. The next person comes along and puts a roof on it. Now, you're not allowed to roof a pergola, but nobody's checking this at this time, remember. So the next person comes along and buys it, and here's this structure with a concrete floor and a roof, and, well, I might close this in.
Downpipes.
Yeah.
Okay, the
some
plot
downpipes.
thickens.
Put some downpipes.
Well, it does.
Put a heater in there, might as well put a kitchen sink as well.
It does happen.
Yeah, and when you come along to the auction, And you see this, and there's this house, and, oh, look, here's this wonderful area for our guests to stay in, or I can turn that into some sort of living area. And you successfully bid at the auction, and lo and behold, when you lodge your search in the council, you discover this whole thing is
Unapproved.
Well, there's a pergola that's approved. Now, and one of the things about pergolas is that they're just stumps in the ground, and you could possibly back in those days get away with the stumps in the ground. Now they have to be in stirrups.
Correct.
But if you're going to have a slab under it, it has to be an engineered slab. You've got to have footings in there, and those footings have to be inspected. Now none of this has happened. Putting a roof on it. Now you might think these lovely pieces of Oregon pine you've got up there look very substantial, but are they engineered A, to hold the roof on in a wind, and B, to stop it from collapsing and all of those things? And the simple answer is no, they're not. And you just, and so firstly, you halfway through the conveyancing process, you discover that a third of the building or a quarter of the building you're looking at doesn't comply.
It gets further complicated by when, if it is enclosed and somebody is living in this structure that somebody's just ad hoc built up, what happens to the insurance side of it?
Well, you'll have to ask the insurance people about that, but I strongly suspect that the insurance company is going to knock you back, and if someone's hurt in that fire, well, the problems just become worse and worse.
Insurmountable.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to find out that there's an issue. You go and see a builder and an engineer. You're not going to get any engineer to certify the slab, the footings, the posts. They may certify the roof and so forth, but I think you're going to find out you have to pull the whole thing down or go back to the pergola stage of it. Now, that might diminish, Lee, your job, not mine, that might diminish the value of the property. By
Usually does.
$40,000, $50,000. You know.
It becomes a nightmare for everybody.
Yeah, that's right. So when you're looking at a house, what I'm saying, even if you are going to buy it subject to these sorts of things, look for carports, garages that have been closed in.
And Peter, it's interesting that you say that, because often as agents, the first thing we'll ask, is this approved? Have you got council approvals? And so many people that we come across will say, yes, it's approved, because they've done it, or they've had a shed organisation or company erect the shed, and they're under the impression that the paperwork is sent forward to council and approved. So often, as you say, they may have had, they've gone so far, but they haven't got that final certificate to say, yes, it definitely is approved. And so many people themselves are unaware, until settlement starts to proceed, that yes, they thought it was approved, but hey, it's not, because we don't have the final on it.
All right,
we come across that so often.
Let me get something in perspective. Now, there's a series of television ads that says, and I won't mention the company's name, but they build these great big shed things, outdoor settings, that sort of thing. So if they build one of those,
it would depend on the company, and well, Peter would probably know even more than I, but it usually depends on the company. And so many people say, but I paid the money and I thought it was approved. All I can say is, as in life, most things, the onus is on yourself. Even if you've paid that, you need to chase it up and say, hey, where's my certificate?
Well, as Peter would say, from a legal point of view, ignorance is no excuse.
Yeah, you were asking before that those people. They are governed by the Domestic Building Contracts Act, if I've got that around the right way, which in essential terms says that a contract for that sort of work must be in writing. It's a matter of looking at that contract with them.
Yes.
And I'd be very surprised if it's not, or your attention is not drawn clearly to whose responsibility it is, A, to get council approval in the first place, and B, to get a final. I know with the sheds I've had built by a local builder, shed builder here, on every occasion he has either got the finals or has said to me, you need to have your plumber do the downpipes and then we can get the final. And they will let you know. And often, Shane, it is a matter of connecting to storm water, which the shed builder doesn't do, and you have to arrange that yourself. That sort of thing has to happen. Similarly, if you're having power connected to it, that may be beyond the contract of the shed builder.
Sure.
And they read your contract and talk to them about it. Again, leave yourself time. Don't
rush.
Don't sign the document that some bloke arrives at 6:30 at night as he's sitting down to tea and said, I've got the contract here for the shed, sign there. You've got no idea what you've signed. And as I said in one of our earlier shows, 24 hours, 48 hours in the life of a shed or a house that you're going to have for 2 decades is nothing.
Yeah.
Take the time to read it and think about it and ask the questions.
And you know, in different markets, again, in a good market or a better market, when things are really popping along, still don't be afraid to ask the questions.
Oh, look, hurry in and repent at your leisure.
Okay, so with that, you've told us there what to look for. Okay, what's the procedure? Just say, you know, you've thought it was approved. We get to the contract stage, then it becomes obvious after you've done the searches that, hey, not approved. Okay, what are the steps that can be taken then, Peter, from both sides? And I suppose, again, that would depend on what clause was put in the contract, if any.
It would. Buying at auction, that's always a risk. I would recommend if you're going to buy at an auction, you simply have to do the search beforehand.
Definitely. Building and pest, finance, the whole bit.
If you buy a house, you go along, look at a house and they say, yes, it's all approved, you have your doubts, well, add the clause, have your solicitor add a clause to the contract that it's subject to you being satisfied and the vendor complying with any outstanding requirements. Your lawyer does the council search, it comes back that we've got a carport that's closed in. And one, it's either not approved, or two, it is approved but not to be a habitable dwelling.
Yes.
And this is the other thing that happens. So if you've thought, you know, I've got 5 kids, this will be nice, that one of them will finally get a bedroom. No, you're not allowed to put them out there. You may be minded to do so, but there are problems with doing it. So, you know, again, you've got a problem, and you'll find out, then you have to spend money. You go and talk to a town planner, an engineer, a builder. What do I have to do? What will the vendor have to do if I can convince them to pay for it to make this a habitable dwelling? And the answer might be you can't do it.
Yes.
Because the apron slab is too high, because the slab is insufficient, because whatever reason, you may not be able to do it, therefore you're walking away from the contract and you have spent money. Undeniable fact. Alternatively, you might find out that it needs to have whatever, insulation and proper glazing, it needs to have a lockable door, etc., etc., etc. And with the expenditure of a certain amount of money, it will become able to be approved as a habitable part of the dwelling. Well, good. Now, is the vendor going to pay for that?
Or are you prepared to pay for it? Probably not.
Indeed not. 20 past 10 right now. 101.5 FM. More in just a moment. 101.5 FM. It's 22 past 10 right now. And back to our panel here. We have Lee Chippendale and also Peter Smith. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, Peter has covered most of those things extensively, but I know Shane is really upset about if you have a cubby house and it has to be removed, or a tree house. And can I say, one of the properties that we sold did have a tree house, to which, mind you, it was a mortgagee sale, so it was a little bit different. We were working with banks and so forth, and we were able to get them to remove it because we, as agents, thought that's going to be a problem. It's not going to be approved. So I'll let Peter continue.
I just think it's appalling that a treehouse would be a problem.
I've seen some pretty scary tree houses, Pete. I wouldn't let my children go in some of the ones I've seen.
What about these tool sheds? Are they classified as a structure?
Depends on the size. Everything. I mean, even a 3x3 shed, that can be okay. But if it's a certain height, then
height, and
comes
if it's
again.
too close to a boundary.
Yes.
All of these things come into play. That's where the
if it's within, hypothetically speking, 1.5 metres, I think maybe 2 metres within a boundary.
1.5.
Have
You
you
should
got a
be
photo
okay.
of your backyard here?
Where's
Shane,
this?
that we can have a look at?
Have you got a tree house that I don't know about?
Yes. That's all good.
Yeah. There's many issues that it covers.
I mean, these things can really upset families too, because the kids see the house, they see, oh, it's a cubby house, and suddenly they have to tear it down. So
or the big play equipment. A lot of people have built in, the big play equipment.
The swing stuff?
Well, it's different to when you and I were probably kids, where it's just the little 3 sort of swing set things. But you now have things like with the cubby house, and they've got the swing, and then it goes on, it's a sand pit, and they're quite a big structure.
And the big cable that goes along with the tyre underneath it, and you slide down this thing with this cable and you crash in the house.
Flying foxes, let's don't get started on that. No, but all of those things do have to be considered.
They do.
Often because a structure, as we were just talking about, is so big, the people that are selling will say, well, look, we're prepared to sell that with it. We're not going to move it. We don't want to take it out. Again, we come to the issue, well, is it too big? Has it been, Do you need an approval for that?
And you suddenly have the responsibility of it when you buy the property. So,
Well,
the
that's
onus
why
comes back on you. And that's the reason why you need to really, as you pointed out, check these things out thoroughly before you buy your place.
I think even when you go to sell your home, and particularly in the era when it was the old Caboolture Shire Council, when they had that ruling much more in place, it's now not as it was. We often used to say to people, look, go to the council and find out, indeed, whether you do have approvals on stuff, because, sure as eggs, we'll get to the,
Peter, I've got
date and it won't be approved.
I've got a huge question. Now, it may be similar, it may be different, but in a business scenario, say someone has built a structure on a property that they've sold as a business concern and didn't get approval the same way that we've talked about from the residential point of view. What happens down the track? Can they then sue the person who originally built it? Is that a possibility?
For what?
For having a structure that's hasn't all the permits and isn't sound and all the rest of it.
Your rights merge at settlement is the term we use. So if A has a commercial block and he puts up a shed that he stores his truck and stuff in, and he's got his machinery outside on the hard stand, and then he sells that on to B, B settles.
Yeah.
B's got no right of action against him as of right.
So therefore, legal.
Back to the sand pit and the playground. I did this very thing in a house I had,
Right.
and it was quite large, and I did have to get approval, but at the end of it, and I had this sand pit that I'd built with sleepers, and I had a trailer load of sand, and I was filling it in, and a mate of mine came past and came in and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm putting the sand in the sandbox." He said, "Put it there on the side, outside." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, your kid's going to have it out there tomorrow morning." So I think about 2 days later I came and here was all the sand on the other side. He was dead right. But Lee, you're quite right. The last 2 houses I sold, indeed through your agency, before I listed them, I went to one of the house building inspectors. I spoke to them, and they're quite happy to come around for a very reasonable fee and tell you what's wrong.
And it saves you so much grief. So much grief. And me personally, there are some states within Australia that actually it is state regulated.
New South Wales, you can't sell without a certificate.
Exactly.
Really?
Even to the point of your gas and everything else. I would love to see it brought in here, that
So
it becomes a statewide, maybe it's something that needs to be addressed with the government, and I think it would be a great idea.
Did you notice on Wednesday night how much we hate them and how much they hate us?
Yes, I have noticed it.
8, may I say, nothing else but 8.
But, I mean, you're part of the peak body, or you certainly...
We're members of it,
Yeah,
yes.
you're members. So
yes.
certainly hasn't that come under discussion
Look, I
within
think
you guys?
it's actually with the REIQ Journal, was just having a flick through this week. At the moment, they're focusing on splitting the Property and Motor Dealers Act, which is a thing that they're working with the government. Yeah, great idea, I think. So that's happening. They're working through that. And in all honesty, they have made a lot of changes over the last 12 months with our Act and different things that we can do. But as far as that, well, maybe that's something that, as members, and that I'm only one member that has that view.
It's got to start somewhere, though.
I think it's something that we maybe can put forward to our state and just see if they can look at it. I think it would be a lot easier for everybody.
Oh, if you think that way, other people...
I'm sure they do.
You would think, on a balanced probabilities, would probably think the same thing. And if it seems reasonable, why not? I mean, it's silly if we don't.
Well, I have friends in New South Wales. She is actually a real estate agent, and they go through it, and it's state legislation. That's what they have to work under, and that's what they have to do, and everything has to be approved.
And you like that model?
Oh, well, can I say from an agent's point of view?
Sure.
It
That's what we
takes
want.
so much of the pressure off an agent. In my opinion, because we're open, we're not appearing as though we're trying to say to a vendor or a buyer that we didn't know, because it has to be done. So from an agent's point of view, that you are saying to your vendor, look, you have to get this done. When the buyer comes in, they are aware of what they are buying. So I just think as much as it can be painful and, a real issue to get things done, I think that in the end, you know what you're buying and the seller knows what they're selling. So there's no grey area. You know what you're doing.
So hopefully by next year we'll hear some movement on this issue.
I don't
maybe.
know. No idea. I don't know what
Good
they
luck
have
with
planned.
that.
Well,
I
we've
don't
talked-
know what they have planned.
We've
Have a
talked
clue.
about it. Someone's going to start thinking,
Yeah.
those guys have got a point there, you know.
Got a few things
Well, I
on their
wonder
plate.
how we're going to have this nationwide conveyancing system with 6 different systems in place. But anyway,
That's a minefield in itself, isn't it? I've heard about that.
I don't know how it's going to happen, but
Why are they proposing it like that?
I don't know. Better minds than mine have addressed that issue, Shane.
They're trying to
They
do
don't have to work with it.
Common
day to
sense
day.
does not prevail in this case, I
No,
guess.
no,
All right.
a lot of things happen with that. But yeah, and it's interesting. One of the things actually talking about they're actually working on the building industry regulation at the moment. So the building industry regulator's getting overhauled.
Okay, tell us a bit about some of the
Okay,
overhauls that they're doing.
Well, I don't know it in point, but basically what they're saying, they've set up an independent Queensland, another one, Independent Building and Construction Commission to replace the Building Services Authority. So really the ruling hasn't changed much in about 22 years.
What's
So-
their précis of operation? How long are they going to do
Okay,
this for?
so, well, they're saying here they're virtually only just starting on it.
Right.
So the House and Public Works Minister, Tim Mander, they're trying to get a 10-point action plan. There's been 41 recommendations to point after last year's parliamentary inquiry, so obviously they've been working on it for approximately 12 months. They're hoping that the new commission will be established in this year, 2013. The structure's going to include licensing, dispute resolutions, the home warranty schemes, so that's, so many years you've had your home, you can still go back to your builder, that type of thing. And they wish to improve the governance of everything. So, time will tell. Obviously, we hope that they are going to be working with all the building people, and obviously have been for the past 12 months.
Will this touch on you guys as well as being members of the
Well,
RIQ? Will they'll be consulting you guys as well?
This would
to
be
a certain
probably
extent?
more the building industry,
All right.
right? Because and then from a real estate agent's point of view, you can just know whether the house has been built in a time frame and whether it's still under warranty
Yeah.
and all those things. And that often comes in with us as property management department. We might take on a brand new home as a rental property that we're managing for somebody. Things can happen. One in instance we have at the moment, there's just been few little issues because the home's new, tenants moving into it, living in it, can tell us little things that are wrong with it. We get hold of the building company. That is still under warranty, so that's not costing the owner of that property anything.
Good point.
It's because the property is still under warranty. So, but this is with the building regulations. So, time will tell what happens with that.
And probably something that's going to go on for at least another year or two before
Oh,
they get
who would
around
know?
to. Yeah,
Who would know?
And that's normally the case of events with these
Yeah.
sort of commissions and so forth. A couple of years, and then they say, "This is what we're going to. This is what we're going to recommend."
all
And
hope
it goes
it
before
works.
Parliament. And well, that's
The
why I
only
say it's
thing that
important.
the
That's why I
only
say it's
thing-
important that you guys need to be involved because you guys are going to be part of the mix at
Yeah.
the end of the day.
Well, the only thing that I always hope, like often these organisations, the state government or whomever, will send out information asking for input. Like, the REIQ did it with input on what tenants felt with changing some of the tenancy rules.
Sure.
I get a bit annoyed when people start, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. So many people don't take the opportunity to have their input put in there. At least if you have something said that you feel may work, let them know. Or something you think doesn't work, let them know. There's all
And you can
these
still,
organisations
whenever
out there.
there's brand new rules or regulations that are brought into place, there's still a review situation
Oh,
goes on
most
for a period of
definitely.
time to make sure they get rid of the teething problems.
Most
So
definitely.
you can still have your input, and people should realise, open your mouth, talk to somebody about it. If you don't think it's right, make a noise about
Well,
it.
there's organisations you can go through to do so.
101.5 FM, it's coming up to 27 to 11. Classic Hits, 101.5 FM, it's 24 to 11. And back to Lee.
Okay, it's just interesting that you mentioned earlier on that we're expecting to hear something from our Prime Minister regarding the date of an election.
Yes, the talk is around the traps, be it Canberra, Sydney, and on the ABC, that there's a strong hint that it's a possibility that there could be an election. Because equally, they've been talking a little bit about this referendum issue, which is not really a referendum because we don't know. Do you know about the referendum?
No, I'm not aware of it.
That's how bad it is. It's a serious situation whereby they're thinking about having a referendum. It's on the books with the election. And it's to cover recognising local government as the third tier of government.
That referendum. Yes, I'm aware of that one.
Suddenly.
Sorry.
But other than that, nobody really knows what this referendum
Oh, okay.
really is all about. And,
Yeah.
and there's apparently a no side, but there hasn't been any talk of it.
Okay.
There's been no advertising. very little advertising on the yes vote. And if we hold it before a certain time, we got to separate the two and all this. It's a real mess. So the talk in the media all of today and most of last night, particularly since the Indonesians have announced that they're blocking off the Iranians coming through on their $25 visas to come straight to Australia. And hope is that they'll include Myanmar or Burma, as we used to call it, Sri Lanka, and other countries that there's a large influx of people trying to come into Australia using the same rule. Hopefully they'll block those off as well. That will cut the boats. That's part of the big plan that Kevin Rudd is hopefully going to unveil today. Along with it is the rumour that the election could be called today for a date. That's the talk in the community.
Okay, from a real estate perspective,
yes,
I would love a date to be called because, as you know, being a member of the REIQ, we get their monthly bulletins and so forth. Pamela Bennett is our REIQ chairman, person, woman, whatever you wish to say these days.
If you wish to be politically correct, that is.
She's our chairperson anyway.
That's right. And a lovely lady too.
Yes, and just a little quote from her just stating that, as she gives a bit of a wrap-up each month, she's just stating that we seem to, as a market, in the real estate market, we seem to have hit a bit of a patch where we're sort of, nothing's been happening in the last few months when 6 months prior was going really well. Well, really well to what it had been, put it that way. Just sort of saying that patch with an elongated federal election, party to blame. So what she's saying with historically low interest rates, they're a good thing, right? Yet the uncertainty which surrounds a federal election, and that's any federal election, not just this one, it means we've yet to experience the full positive impact of reduced rates. Now, I agree with that. With the low interest rates we're having, and I know it's still been tough times out there, they are so low and so inviting for a prospective buyer to be buying a property. You would think we would be seeing much better sales than what we as an industry are seeing. Federal elections, state elections, federal elections, they always impact on people making a decision. The fact that this federal election has been called for so long, as an industry, we sort of feel that that has sort of slowed things a little bit longer than what would be necessarily the case
because things
with a certain date.
Because things were moving, it was almost the election we weren't going to have because it was so long in the future. And so people got used to the idea, well, the election's not a long way off. It's still in September. Let's have some fun with buying property anyway. And that's what people were doing for a while. To a certain extent, because things weren't too bad. It's only in the last month or two.
All I'm
really
saying
gone.
that it's quieting down, and I would. Well, that again, end of financial year, that always affects things as well. But look, I would love to hear a date called. I just think it will give people a sense of, okay, we're going to have an election, whatever the outcome, there's an election, and, you know, after the election, whatever the outcome, people have it behind them, and then they will make decisions as to what they're going to do.
It's funny, there's still talk of an August 21st election date at this stage. That's the things I'm hearing in the media today, already this morning. Now, that's a quick time. That's it's a little over a month away. A month and 2 weeks.
That's a short, sweet.
That's a very short, sweet one. And that would be good for you.
Look, both parties will have their things ready by that time, I would imagine.
But that would be good for you guys.
Yeah, look, I think so.
Get it over and done with. Get it out of the way.
I think everybody would like to see it, and it does affect real estate. There's no doubt about it. It does. Don't know why necessarily, because, you know, either way you're going to build or sell or what have you. But anyway, I'm hoping we find out a date. That would be lovely.
Look, it's quite blatantly obvious that the elections also affect the stock market. The stock market is related to the real estate market, so there you go. It's going to have an effect on you guys, whether we like it or not. And happens what happens here, happens in America, happens in New Zealand, happens in South Africa, happens in England.
Of course it does.
I can keep on going in all the countries that it happens to, even in China. It happens in China.
It's just
what's our next little subject? Because we'll get back to that shortly.
Little subjects,
What are we talking next?
Okay. We have a section with Caboolture at the moment that goes on about the council budget and things that they've put out there and what's going to happen. One little graph that's really interesting, and it's the Caboolture region's historical house sales. And this is from 2003 to 2013. And it's just interesting. I just think people out there, it just confirms what we sort of have lived through in the last, 10 years or so with the market. In 2003, this is the number of residential house sales. Okay.
Each year?
Yeah, from 2003, we had 4,000 sales in 2003.
Right.
The median price was roughly around the 150,000 for a house, and that makes it to virtually be your residential properties.
That's on the lower end of
no, that was your median.
Yeah.
That was your median house
Is
sale
that a good
price.
value? 150?
Yeah, that was great.
Okay.
That was terrific. You sold a few of those, you made some good commission, and
Right.
we sold lots of them back then. So that was great. So in 2003, 2004 it declined a little. We dropped to 3,500 properties for sale. Okay, this is in Caboolture. And your median house price then rose a little, and as it was virtually doubling. We went to 250
Really?
and-
In a space of how many years?
in a year.
In a year.
And as an agent, honestly, you were going in and trying to put a price on a house. It was very difficult because they were moving and increasing so quickly.
But people were buying.
Oh, most definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. 2005 is when we saw a slowdown again. We sold 2,000, so it dropped. Okay? And your prices stayed around the 200,000 then, so it started to quibble out a bit. 2006, we were around about the 2,300 per year. So 2005, 2006 slowed down a bit. 2007, we saw it go up again to 3,000 properties for that year.
Right.
In the Caboolture area.
Median price? How'd that go?
Median price was about 260.
Okay.
Okay, so it started to settle a bit. 2008 bumped up again to about 3,400 roughly, and your price then was around about the 260, 270. So people who've bought and sold, you can see, if they bought in 2005, they made a profit in 2008. Okay. Then we hit 2009. Our sales for that year in this Caboolture area, 2,000.
Now, we have to remember that half that problem is also due to the world economic crisis, so
Thank
it's
you.
just about to come into play.
Exactly. It was just starting to happen. Prices were around the medium house prices around about the 200. Gee, I dispute that one a little bit. Anyway, they would know more than I. Okay, 2010, we got a little bit of a bump up there again. We got to 2,300 or so.
And median
sales.
And
sales.
median price?
Median house price just above the 200.
Okay.
211. So this is your median. So it's your lowest, your highest,
And
then
what's in the middle?
cut down into worked out from there. Obviously, there would be higher prices than that and lower. Okay, 2011. It was a shocking year. We sold 1,500.
Wow, that's a big drop.
Yep, and that's what I'm saying.
And of course, the
11,
economic
12, and
crisis is in
13.
full swing by this.
Yeah, they've been tough years.
Yeah.
And they've been tough years. 2012 dropped to just slightly lower again. Your house pricings were down to median house prices, okay, just below the 150. 2013, we finally started to see a little bit of an increase, okay, and we're up to about 1,700.
Now, looking at a graph, like always,
And they're not, they're not perfect. It's a guide for you to read by.
the point I was going to make is it is cyclic. You're going to have these external influences, whether it be economic crises, political elections.
It's tough when you're in that market trying to buy and sell. It's hard
but
for people.
at the worst possible time, that's the best possible time to buy.
Of course it is.
Because
That was
then
2011,
Because
apparently.
with every graph, because it's cyclic, you're going to get your rise again in a few, with 5-6 years down the track.
Well,
and you're going to be able to double your money.
Well,
selling your
I
property.
don't know if we get double these as quickly as we were back in 2003, 2000.
Well, if you look at the stock market, now look, ever since the big economic crash of 1928, 29, okay, every year since then, and it's always been a cyclic graph, there has been an increase in every decade.
Well,
Property prices aren't much different by and large.
Property used to be like a 7-year cycle. You always
Yeah.
used to say there's the 7-year cycle.
Does that still apply?
Yeah.
Or is it changing?
It's changed a little. I think the GFC's hit it around a little bit, but I think you'll start to see the increase. Look, some of the experts are saying around the 2015 they're hoping to see some definite, solid increase in housing markets.
Well, according to that graph there, you're starting to see a slight
Starting to
increase.
see a slight
so
one.
next year will be a confirmation.
Well, we hope so.
Right.
We're hoping it's going to be better.
Time right now is 14 to 11. Got more in just a moment. Morton Bay Area's #1 radio. It's now 10:49 right now, and on the line right now, I'm happy to have Michael. Michael is on the line here. Michael Fasher, from a spokesperson for the SEQ Water. How are you doing today, sir?
Very good, Shane. How are you?
Not too bad. Now, Southeast Queensland residents are being urged to have their say on the future recreation of North Pine Dam and Lake Kurongba as part of the most extensive review of recreation in Southeast Queensland dams and catchments ever undertaken. Tell us more.
Yes, indeed. Look, we did have a go at this a little while ago, unfortunately before the floods came along in 2011, and it was a bit of a false start then. but we're back into the process now. And what we want to do is we want to encourage people from throughout southeast Queensland who use our 27 dams to have a bit of a think about how they're used and how that situation may be enhanced. In your region up there, we obviously have a cluster of north of Lake Sensavale and of Lake Kwongbar that are used extensively for recreation, and it's cluster number 2. And this weekend at the Petrie markets and at the Launton markets, we kicked the session off with the opportunity to have an info session where people can come along, hear a little bit about it, and then in a couple of weeks' time, they'll have an opportunity to take part in a forum. We ask people to get onto the website, www.yourseqwater.com.au. They can get the discussion papers and download them, have a good look at what is already in place, and have a think about what they might like to see happen. And as I said, everything is on the table. We're looking at all sorts of opportunities. Obviously, we've got to balance it against the needs of drinking water storages, because a lot of people love to have recreation on these activities, but they don't really understand that they are water sources to drink. So it's an important balance that we have to take part in.
Now, residents are also welcome to attend discussion workshops starting on 10th of August 2013. That's 10th of August. Now, to attend that, you have to register, I understand. Is that right?
Yeah, it's very important. On the 10th of August and the 31st, there are going to be 2 forums, and the idea will be the info sessions this weekend are really to give people a starting point. The discussion papers are already up on the internet, so they can go and get those, have a look at them, come and talk to us, have a bit of discussion. There's a survey that they can fill in, Shane. We encourage people to fill the survey in, and we encourage people to register. Very important to register their interest and register their attendance at these workshops. And when they're registered, they can come along and take part in a workshop process. It's not just an open forum. It's an actual process where we look at the 2 lakes, we compare what's happening, we ask people for an input. We want to hear the different opinions from different stakeholder groups, and we aim to work all of that through, and hopefully within about 8 weeks after the process begins, we'll be able to have a process where we've got a paper, a strategy in place, and we're going to do that across the 10 clusters of dams throughout southeast Queensland.
Now, these discussions, as you get results of that, is that going to be put onto the website as well at www.yourseqwater.com.au?
Look, probably the results aren't going to be put up there as such. There will be feedback given through a number of processes whereby people can see, where things are. But the stakeholder groups who are very much involved in this process will be very much able to see what's happening through the forums. Very much able. But we don't just want the sort of the big players. We want to hear everybody, the mums and the dads out there that look at these lakes in their backyards and would love to see things happening. We want to hear from them also, because it's their community spaces, and the Minister has very strongly stated that he wants to see these spaces used more for recreation, obviously within the confines of what we have in terms of water quality and other issues, but it's very important that everyone has this say, Shane.
Michael, we are going to keep in touch on this. It's an important issue because our water resources are precious. We shouldn't just be trivialising this. This is important stuff for our future generations.
Well, it is, Shane. One of the things that I think people don't realise also is if you lived in some of the other states of Australia, many of their waterways for drinking water are closed sources. In southeast Queensland, we actually have 5% virtual protection around our catchments, and a lot of it is there's all sorts of different land uses, and people need to understand that the water that they drink, it's a big story. We do take it for granted. We turn that tap on and we think that the water just comes out, but there is a much bigger story, and I implore people to actually investigate that story, because it's a really important one that we all need to understand more, and this recreation review, it's a part of that.
Michael, we will talk more, and we'll talk next Wednesday, perhaps, get a bit of an update on how things went with the Launton and the old Petrie Town market. Is that okay with you, sir?
Yeah, very, very happy to let people know what's coming through, what the feedback is. We already have a bit of an idea of because we're in contact with stakeholders all the time, and we have a bit of an idea. But happy to come back and let you know how things are going.
Michael, we will chat, and we'll leave you with that. And don't forget the information sessions. Launton Country Markets, 20th of July. Now, that's this weekend, 6 a.m. to 12 noon, and Old Petrie Town Markets, 21st of July, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., and the website, www.yourseqwater.com.au. Michael Feechner, we will have a chat to you again next week on Wednesday, I promise you.
I look forward to it, Shane. Thank you.
Have a good day, sir, and good luck.
Thank you.
Radio, we have Lee Chippendale back. We have about 4 minutes, 25 seconds. Anything else to wrap up there while you're at it?
Just a very short note. The Commissioner for Fair Trading, David Ford, they've obviously been working on a 2-year transaction period from October 2011. Sounds silly, but bunk beds in rental properties, this is usually more for short-term rentals. So basically, unit rentals, holiday rentals, that type of thing. The changes from the 21st of October 2013, bunk beds used in short-term rental accommodation must meet mandatory safety standards. This has been worked on for a while. The short-term accommodation is defined as accommodation supplied in trade or commerce for a period of 60 days or less. Okay, the reason this has happened, it's designed to prevent bunk bed-related injuries to children. Kiddies, apparently 300 children present to hospital emergency departments in Queensland each year with bunk bed-related injuries. So be aware of it. If you have your property managed through agents, just make sure your agent is aware of the new laws that they have to be done, because the maximum penalty for breaching the safety standards is 1.1 million for a body corporate and 200,000 for an individual.
I don't have that sort of money in my back pocket.
Well,
chance I'm going to break any of those rules.
That's why the insurance. This is why these people have insurance. But be aware of it. If you have a property manager that manages that for you, or you are in a body corporate situation, please be aware they're aware of the changes if you have bunk beds in any of the properties that you rent out.
It's not a bad idea to be au fait with what is law and what is not.
Can I say I had bunk beds just in my house as my children grew up, and my eldest threw my youngest over the top bunk, and youngest ended up with a broken collarbone. So, I mean, that's fine in your own home. Not that it's fine, but it happens in your own home, so there's no reason it can't happen in properties that are rented, so be aware of it.
That's right. And the onus is on you, after all.
Well, be aware of it. Just if you have it, just please mention it to your property manager if they haven't made you aware of it already.
Good advice. We still have 2 minutes and 11 seconds. Now, coming up next time, what are we going to be doing? Any? Hopefully we'll have an election date by then.
Well, that would be nice. I will probably have some more information from realestate.com with their stats and figures that they always involve with us. I would also probably go over a little bit about the March quarter, about just the property sales and percentages up and down, what's happened in our area and neighbouring
How
areas.
soon will it be before we have our second quarter results come in, before they're collated? Is that usually September?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we usually get them a little bit after, because by the time they collate them and get them together.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, so, and
Sounding
no doubt
good.
some other information we'll have for you ready by then.
Awesome stuff. Now, here at 101.5 FM, Lee Chippendale, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on board
Thank you,
today.
Shane.
You'll be back in about 2 weeks' time from
That
now.
I will be.
And looking forward to your bright, beautiful, smiling, happy face, always full of cheer.
Oh, you're so lovely.
Well, we do try. It's 1 minute to go before latest in news. We have Alan Jones to follow. Just had a quick check of the latest results coming in from Canberra. No election date as of yet. There's no big announcement. However, I would dare say, Kevin Rudd, if he's smart, like most politicians usually are, they usually hold these things right before 12 noon.
Oh.
Probably won't hear anything much before then.
Correct.
However,
12 noon.
we here at 101.5 will be on top of things as they happen, should they happen, and when they happen. And you best bet everything on yourself, folks. We'll be finding out what all the goss is, all the issues, and a whole lot more, how it affects us all. That's most important right here, particularly for morning magazine programs right throughout the whole week. And leading up to election, it will be a pretty busy time for us all, because we will be covering the election night here on 101.5 FM. We'll have all the top politicians here, plus all the contenders wishing to have that big role in Canberra that are aspirant candidates. We'll have them all here. And during the lead-up, we'll also be talking to a lot of these candidates to find out their take on local perspectives. That's most important.
It's always very trying times.
It certainly is. Here at 101.5 FM. Anyway, it's enough from me, enough from everybody else here. Time for the latest news on 101.5 FM.